Well, hello. I thought I'd let you hear the crickets before I started talking. Can you hear them? It's a nice spot. I was here yesterday. I'm in Dunn County. I came to Menominee for a vigil, wake, and while I was here, I thought I'm going to take my bicycle and do my 17-mile loop that I used to do when I lived here. And man, it was my most common loop. It wasn't my longest loop. It was a little 17-mile loop. Took me a little over an hour, I think, and so I could time it pretty well. And you just go through all kinds of beautiful land like this. This isn't even probably the most scenic spot, but it's scenic enough, right? So I was here yesterday on my bicycle, and I thought it would be a good place for the chat with the hay drying in the field. You know, it's nice. Last weeks of summer, right? I heard the other day, September 1st is the beginning of meteorological summer. So weather, I guess they count the fall starting on September 1st, right? Labor Day is kind of coming up this weekend. So we had our school kids show up today with their parents to bring all their school supplies in, and the classes start tomorrow already. Our first school mass will be on next Wednesday. School mass will always be on Wednesdays at 9 o'clock. There's some exceptions, like if there's a holy day of obligation during the week, like All Saints Day, Immaculate Conception, then whatever day of the week that is, that'll be the day of the school mass. And then Wednesday will be a regular daily mass. Everybody's welcome to come to those. There's a while with COVID and all that we said school mass, so we have to have the spacing and the distancing, and so we discourage people from coming, but thankfully those days are not upon us now. So anyway, school mass starts next Wednesday. Heather does such a great job getting them ready to sing. Who was it? Mrs. Worris was telling some parents or grandparents were at school today, and she said, if you ever want to be inspired, just come to one of those school masses just to hear the children sing. And she's right. It's really, really great. So anyway, I'm on 630th Street. It probably has a name too. I can't remember what the name would be of it. And anyway, just a lovely, lovely spot, I think. By the way, I don't know if anyone knows, there's a lot of people with the last name Rogers, but the man who died, whose vigil I came to last night, was named Mike Rogers. And just a really good guy. And he kind of had, I guess it was second marriages and a blended family. So between he and Teresa, they had raised 5 children on the farm, and he had a plumbing company, and I think he was a Marine, and definitely a veteran. And one of those guys I wish I had a little more time with when I knew him. One of these gentle giant kind of guys, but had a lot of real personal strength and character, hard worker, and a real tender heart and a spiritual openness. It's really, I think we need a lot of men like that in our world. We have a lot of good men at St. James, of course, but some that I just think are off the charts, really integrated, really, really have great inner strength and also great inner sensitivity, and seem how to integrate that. I really admire that. So when I went to the funeral home, I don't know what your practice is typically when you go to a wake where they've embalmed the person's body. But I don't know when I started the habit of it. Maybe when my father died. That would be 23 years ago. But I always kind of kept my distance. I guess I would go and I'd kneel in front of the body, but I wouldn't touch the body. And I don't know if I saw somebody or I just felt like touching my dad's body. But it's meaningful to me. I do it. And I think that's probably why we have the embalming, is so that we can still encounter the person's physical nature, whose death we're grieving. We were talking after Mass the other day about cremation versus full body burials. And the church is kind of okay with either. There's always a stated preference for full body. I think because in the early centuries of the church, people who wanted to mock Christians would burn bodies because you believe in the resurrection of the body. Here, resurrect this, a bunch of ashes. So that's, gratefully not the case now. And cremated remains have been allowed in church since the 80s. They changed the rules on that. And so another option is sometimes people have the body embalmed and for the funeral rites, and then they have a cremation afterwards. So I don't know. You can keep weighing the pros and cons ecologically. It seems better for the earth to just have a cremation. But I do like encountering a physical body at a wake. And so with Mike last night, I just said he's kind of an inspiring guy. Really, I think a well-integrated male. And so I just kind of grabbed his wrist and said, you're a good man. Give me some of that energy, and I want to some of those qualities that you showed so well, help me exhibit them myself and integrate them myself. So it's good. We had a host of saints up there in heaven willing to help us and send prayers. So it's good to think about them and what we need and how we want to live and seek their help, I think. So anyway, that's why I was here yesterday. I sprained my ankle 2.5 weeks ago, and it's still weak. It'll be 3 weeks. Will it be 3 weeks? Tuesday? Maybe 2. But golly, it's still sore and swells, and so I do this bike ride, and then I was feeling it this morning. So we'll see. Anyway, I got some parish news. What do we got? We could use some more streamers. What kind of streamers? Video streamers. So we stream our mass, right? So a lot of you maybe do that. You check out the video mass, and then you check out the midweek chat, both on our YouTube channel. So we have this incredible core of videographers that we've had pretty much from the start. I think maybe Landon and Don were kind of on the ground floor, and then shortly after Steve got on board. And we've had Isaac, who's now a pre-seminarian in La Crosse, help them. So we had 4. Now Isaac's down in La Crosse this year, so we don't have him. And Christine said initially when we started video streaming, there were a bunch of people that did want to do it, and they volunteered. And for some reason it didn't work out for them to do it, and maybe they felt turned away. So that's always a hard situation if someone feels turned away after they say, I'll help. After we ask for it, so I'm not sure all that happened, but anyway, I'm asking again if anyone thinks they might want to learn the ropes and how to sit up in the control room in the choir loft and shoot the video mass. That'd be great. You'll have plenty of mentors to help you. Hey, we're gonna have a women's retreat. Why would I be so excited about a women's retreat? Because I want people to have good spiritual experiences. Crazy 4-wheelers with no roof and a roll bar. Anyway, so remember, it'll be on October 14th. Probably a small fee requested, though if you ever really want to do something spiritually enriching like that and there's a fee and you can't do it, just let me know, please. And we'll figure something out, okay? And but just cover food and things and a stipend for the presenter. The presenter, I'm happy to say, is Pam Cernick. She lives in Birchwood, and she used to live in Menominee, not so far from here, south of Menominee. She was due south. I am southeast. And anyway, she did our parish mission this past Lent, and it was very well received by people. So some of you would have an instant comfort level with her. Remember, she talked about suffering and the spirituality around suffering, and how do we deal with suffering in our lives in faith, and faithfully, hopefully, honestly. And it was great. It was really great, and I think most people thought it was really great. And she's coming. Someone said, hey, why don't we have her for a women's retreat this year? Because there's been a tradition at St. James of having a women's retreat. I think it's been a little while, or maybe no one told me about it, and it's been going on every year. But I remember when I first started, there was a women's retreat. I think they were typically 3 hours. This will be at least an all-day thing Saturday, not in the evening, but all day, morning and afternoon. And if people would like to stay for Mass. October 14th. She's thinking about doing something on women in the Bible, but she loves giving retreats and has done it for years. And so that's just you'll be hearing about it, it'll be publicized, but I hope we can get a group to do it. I just, spiritual enrichment things I think are just so important to offer. And yeah, and thanks for the Ricci's. Greg and Elaine came down from Cumberland, I think, Beth's parents, to offer a night of marriage enrichment last Sunday, just a few days ago. And, honestly, we didn't get the amount of registrations we were hoping for. But those who came, I think, benefited a lot. And hopefully we can think of new other ways to continue to offer things for marriage enrichment that might attract more folks. So anyway, they put a lot of effort into that, so I thank them for coming down. And I know Beth and her family put together a great feast. I should have shown up around dinner time. You don't want to do that all the time. You get a reputation. But anyway, so that's coming up. Religious Ed starts next week, Group A. So we have Group A and Group B because we have a lot of students in our Religious Ed. So through Kelly's ingenuity, we have the different groups. So it's like twice a month for the different, typically. And it's starting early. This is why they're clever. Well, it's not why they're clever, but it's another example of their cleverness, Kelly and Beth. So how many times did we cancel Religious Ed last year? I don't know, 4? Why? Because of snow and ice and cold. And so this year they're going to start early. Usually they start at the end of September. They're starting right away next week. But they're going to take a big break, like January, early February. So we won't have to worry about snow days. And I've heard that's a pretty popular schedule with parents they've talked to too. So anyway, that's great. But that starts up. I mentioned our school started up. While I was looking at the calendar, I noticed it's going to be a tough Christmas season. It's going to be a short Advent, the 4th Sunday of Advent. Guess what date it is? So like last year, I think we had a full 4 weeks of Advent. This week we're going to have 3 weeks and a day, because the 4th Sunday of Advent is December 24th. And so we'll have our Advent masses, and then right away we got to start our Christmas Eve masses. So, all right, I'll start doing my conditioning to get ready for that. And everyone else who helps out at the Mass, our choir people. And yeah, if you missed it, I wrote a little bit about it. We'll just gradually introduce Nick to the community, but Mary Kolstad, who's just been an all-star music director for us, past 8 years, I think I figured, is stepping back. We hope to still see her a lot. She says that'll be the case, so I trust her. But Nick Paas is going to be our new music director. So I mentioned that last week when I was live from American Family Stadium. Speaking of Brewers, man, they lost 1-0 and stopped their 9-game winning streak. And tonight's the rubber game of the match. Maybe I can go over and watch it at Audrey's house. We'll see. They usually got the game on. So that'll be a kind of exciting game tonight. And the Cubs. I didn't mean to put down Cubs or Cubs fans. I just mentioned I had this conversion after the Cubs won the World Series. I went from being a really strong Cubs fan to not even really caring about the Cubs, and it just happened automatically. I didn't, and I think I brought that up. Just the mystery of conversion in our lives. Sometimes we really want to believe. We can really work hard at something, and it just doesn't click. And sometimes we're not even trying, and somehow love of God wells up in our heart, and we just get excited about the whole God project, and I think that's more part of our lives. And so that's how it happened to me with the Brewers. It just clicked, Mysterious, our spiritual lives, huh? Yeah. For the most part, though, if you're looking, I think most people say just, you start a spiritual practice. If you're looking to be closer to God, experience more closeness to God, or have a spiritual, spiritual life improvement, call it a conversion, or just to make yourself available to God and to state your desires. This is what I want, God, and to kind of sit and listen and be patient, and to serve, and to do good things, do things that you think God wants you to do. And most of those things are pretty obvious: helping out your neighbors, helping out each other, and connect that to your prayer life. think about the good things you've done in the past day, and thank God for allowing you to do that. It's a pretty good place to start, I think, getting closer to God. Acknowledging our sins as well. Trusting in his mercy, you know? So, yeah. So, let's see. Speaking of being, I don't know if I was saying being patient, but I was reading what was it in I forget what publication, but was it America? Anyway, the Pope was talking, Pope Francis, to an audience in Rome about Kateri Tekakwitha, Saint Kateri, and she was an Algonquin native indigenous American, and her feast day is in July, so I'm not sure why he was talking about her, but he was talking about how her family all got smallpox, and she got it too, and her face was really pockmarked, but she didn't die, she survived. And something about going through that experience, maybe, and those who helped her. I'm not sure in the end why I need to know more about her story, why she chose Christianity as like an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, 19-year-old, but she did. And she faced a fair amount of resistance from family and from her kind of home crowd for that. And that's why the Pope talked about patience. He says he used her as an example of carrying a cross and persevering in the faith, even when you don't see results, or even when it's not pleasurable, even when you meet resistance, even when it makes you a little fearful, or patience. And he put it all in the frame of patience, which is great. He said this, his little quote: "Patience is a great Christian virtue. One who is not patient is not a good Christian." And he reframed patience in two dimensions: patience to tolerate challenges, and the patience to tolerate others who are tedious to you or sometimes put you in difficulty. He goes off script when he talks, and sometimes he talks like in absolutes that I don't know. Like usually anything Pope Francis says, I'm really super on board with. But when he says something like, "One who is not patient is not a good Christian," I thought, well, I mean, I know a lot of people that aren't patient, and I don't want to say they're not good Christians because they show up, they pray with the community, and they try to help their neighbors. I think I get what he's saying, he's trying to make a point about the importance of patience. But sometimes it's our personality. Sometimes we set up this model, or I do, of kind of what you got to be like in order to be good, or in order to be the person you want to be. And sometimes we, like when I was younger, I don't know if you ever did Myers-Briggs personality indicators, but I'm an ISTJ. Okay, you don't even know what that means, but you can be an I or an E, a T or an F, and a P or a J, and an I and an N or a S. Yeah. So anyway, I was ISTJ, and it seemed like everybody that I admired when in ministry, like priests and teachers, and they were ENFPs. they were all different from me, like in every way, personality-wise. And I thought, at some point, it kind of dawned on me that, well, if you're setting yourself up for a life of frustration, all your role models are different from you. So it's like, gosh. So anyway, then I read, was it a James Martin book? It was about, the title of it was Becoming Who You Are. And the whole point of the whole thing was, for you to be who God wants you to be, you got to be yourself as God made you, and develop that to the fullest potential, the most loving version of yourself that you can do. But you might look out at somebody else. I mean, you can't be Mother Teresa, or maybe you can. I don't know. You're not going to be, this person that you admire and emulate, would like to be like. They're not your measuring stick. You are. You're your own measuring stick by what you're capable. The more you know about your strengths and your weaknesses, your need for grace, your talents, things that maybe you're not that great about, but you can do when you rely fully on God, like a frog, fully rely on God, acronym. So anyway, that's always worth saying, I think. But patience is important. And what I think we all know about, we need to be patient with people. That was the second reason to be patient. But I liked what he said about being patient to tolerate challenges. And see, I don't have that. when something isn't going right, I want it fixed and I want it to go right, whether it's something I'm dealing with or something in the parish or something. And that can have an advantage because maybe things get fixed faster if you're impatient with that. But I think I know what he's saying is don't get... Father Bill Matzik, my first pastor I worked with when I was just ordained, he'd always say, if I would come like, oh yeah, this, and then, they said this, and I don't know what to do. And he'd always, his first response was usually, yeah, I wouldn't get too shook about it. Just kind of, then he'd kind of talk it through, and just, things would be all right. This isn't going to be the end of the world, even if it doesn't go the way you want it to. There's other situations in life it'll go better, or whatever. And he wasn't lazy. He wasn't just like, whatever. I mean, he definitely wanted to do a good job and have people get along and have Christ magnified by our work, all those things. But he's like, don't worry so much about it. Be patient with the situation. I think about someone that I know who is really succeeding in the technological world right now. It's sort of like an engineer type guy. And obviously a smart guy, but I think even more important than the fact of his intelligence is his patience. This is why I started in engineering, and I dropped, and I think in the end it's because of this. Because I'd see these problems I'd have to solve, and it just made me crazy. And I could solve them, but I'd be so anxious until I solved them. It's just like, I don't want to live like this the rest of my life, And anyway, this guy, I think he's great. He's a young man. I don't know if he must be 30 about now, but he can just kind of sit at a computer and debug software problems or he just can kind of figure out how to do stuff. He just tries something. If it doesn't work, he tries something else. If it doesn't work, he tries something else. He'll he'll call somebody, ask somebody. But it doesn't seem like at any point in the process, he really freaks out about anything. He's this thing. He's tolerant. He tolerates challenges well. He just kind of keeps plugging away, And I so admire that. So, but when Pope Francis says, if you're not patient like that, you're not a good Christian, I think, but anyway, it's a good thing to consider, I suppose, right? Hey, I'm reading a book. Let's see if I wrote anything over. Yeah, okay. Okay. Do a quick plug for this again. Oh, I forget what date it is. Toward the end of September, if you're interested, we're reading this book together as a parish. Well, not as a whole parish, but people that are in the book club that I lead. It's Larry Winter. There's Larry Winter. His picture, you might recognize him from church. He wrote this. It's a real deeply personal book about his own wounds and traumas. Oh, look at what. I was wondering where I put these. They're in the bookmarks. My gift certificates from the pharmacy. All right. Anyway, right. Deep about the traumas in his life, which are deep and very personal, and he puts it all in here, and his way toward healing and greater freedom in his life. And so I got into it a couple chapters. It's very well written, and we look forward to discussing with people. It's toward the end of the month, so there's still time if you'd like to read it. I don't know if there's an e-copy available or not, but it's available on a major internet bookseller. The one I picked up, I was reading America Magazine, the National Jesuit Weekly, or maybe it's bi-weekly now, and there was a book review. I had no idea. So Martin Luther King Jr., there's a new biography about him, and I guess there hasn't been a real biography about him in like a long time, and since that last one was written, like a real serious attempt to be comprehensive about his life, just a lot of private records have been released. There was an unpublished autobiography by his father that this author had access to. One of the things that comes out was just how grossly his privacy was invaded by the FBI. Every phone call he ever made for like the last 10 years of his life maybe were tapped, And anyway, they released those transcripts. So the author had access to those transcripts. Just a whole bunch of new kind of source material. And this is written by a guy named Jonathan Eig. And he wrote a book that I thoroughly enjoyed, because I thoroughly enjoyed the subject, was Muhammad Ali. It's just called Ali. It's about the same size, thick like that. But I just chewed that one up. I loved it. And well written, well researched. And I think this is, it's not the biography of a saint. What do they call it? Hagiography, when you write about a saint and everything the person does is great. So there's some hard truths about like his personal life that weren't so great. And I watched a few interviews about it. And, but, you know, overall, it's just kind of a portrait of life, what made him tick. And the author's, you know, very complimentary and inspired by him. Speaking of which, was it Saturday? Was the 60th anniversary of I Have a Dream speech. I have a dream that one day, I should have brought some of the text, I could read it, but that all the children of all the different skin colors would join hands on Stone Mountain, Georgia, and not have that divisions among them because of their skin color. I have a dream, I can see this. And this picture, in fact, they said, I read the dust jacket. So this picture was taken like right after he finished that speech. So pretty poignant, isn't it? And he said some people, you know, they forget some of the things. They think it was just because I have a dream. Dreams sound so futuristic, like just wishes. And he said people forget that I have a dream speech. It wasn't wishes, it was demands for the sake of justice. And so we hear that often. Martin Luther King Day. We used to host at St. James. I think they mostly celebrate that at the Pablo Center now, Martin Luther King Day celebrations. He told a story. I just barely got into it. I want to read at least, sometimes I can start a book and I just forget about it. And I want to get at least a page a day. Sometimes they say it's a great tip for prayer. Sometimes we have this goal like, yeah, I want to pray a half hour every day, which is a great goal. But when you don't have a half hour, then you don't pray at all. And I had this spiritual director once. He said, yeah, pray every day. So I was struggling with my meditations and all that. And he said, even if you just sit on your prayer cushion, have a prayer chair or a prayer cushion and sit on it every day. And if you're only on it for 5 seconds, that's okay for now. But just sit on it. Let me know how it goes next month. And usually if you just get yourself to sit, then it's going to be at least 5 minutes. It's not going to be 5 seconds. But anyway, so I'd like to read at least a page of this every day. Who knows how long it'll take me to get through it. But I think I'll find it fascinating and clip along pretty well. There's a story about his father, Martin Luther King Sr., who was a pastor also. And he was the grandson of slaves. And he was on a farm growing up with his parents. His name was Michael. They didn't say why he changed his name, and maybe it'll come later, but he changed his name to Martin Luther from, and they were Baptist, not like they were Lutheran. But anyway, that his mother was always very generous, even when they didn't have much. And he heard that the cow of the neighbor was not giving milk or something. So she gave Michael, at the time, this pail of milk to take over to the neighbor. And on the way, there was this guy who owned some kind of a shop, not a merchant shop, but like fixing cars or something like that. And he told the kid to do something, and he said, "So I can't. I'm on an errand right now." And the guy just beat him badly. And so a white guy on this black boy, and then the mom saw when he came home, saw how beat up he was, and then she ran over to the guy and just leaned into him, said, "You can kill me, but if you put a hand on a child of mine, you'll answer." And I guess she just kind of rammed him with her shoulder and knocked him over. And I thought the story was going to be she was killed or something. And the narrator said if it was a man, he would have been killed, but she probably got away with it because she was a woman. And anyway, that's the grandmother of Martin Luther King Jr. And Martin Luther King, of course, ended up going a little more toward nonviolence than that, but with the same courage, right, and the same force. So I see it's getting toward 30 minutes. Some of the things, hopefully I touched on everything we need to for today. Let you take this in, listen to the crickets. God bless you.